Welcome to Behind the Tools. Here's Tradefy CEO and your host, Michael Steckler.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Behind the Tools. Delighted to have Sophie Jack based in Auckland in New Zealand. Sophie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Sophie, you have we'll get into this, but you have a podcast and you're known as sort of Sophie the Builder on Instagram. And do you want to maybe start by just telling us, your background, how you got into trades and what you're doing now?
Yeah, so this year is my fourth year in my building apprenticeship. And before that, I was in the events industry as a audio-visual engineer. So pretty much all the sound and lights and technical aspects for concerts and conferences. I did that for about 5 years after high school. And I decided I needed a bit of a lifestyle change because the hours were pretty hectic. And at the same time, I became quite obsessed with tiny houses. So I thought, well, if I needed a bit of a change in career path, why not go into building and actually learn the fundamental skills so I could actually build my own tiny house. So I kind of went down that path and haven't looked back since.
Oh, cool. So the sort of hours was one thing. And then the time, talk me through the tiny house thing. Was that you wanted to build a tiny house to live in, or?
Yeah, so me and my partner are currently halfway through our build, and it kind of made sense in quite a few aspects. Financial sense being kind of the key factor, just with the auction house prices and that kind of thing, and being able to build it ourselves brought down the cost even more. And both our families have a bit of land on each other's properties, so we thought, why not build a tiny house? And yeah, it's halfway through, but yeah, it's going well.
What's the definition of a tiny house, by the way? What does that actually mean?
So our one is defined as a tiny house on wheels. So it's on a trailer. Yeah. It's on a trailer, and we've made it so it's a road legal trailer. So it's got a warrant and rego, and within the dimensions of legally being able to tow it with a vehicle. So under a certain weight limit and sizing, so you don't have to have a pilot vehicle. It is depending on what area in New Zealand you are, defines the regulations around district councils and all that kind of stuff. It's still kind of an area of room for improvement with what the actual regulations are, but it's pretty much a studio apartment or an apartment size on a trailer. So yes, full kitchen, full bathroom, and lounge, and more of a loft style bedroom. But so that's what it is.
Cool. And then, so what, in the process of looking at that and starting to build that, you decided actually this would be a great job? Is that what happened?
Yeah, so one of my friends at the time suggested I look into an apprenticeship, because I was kind of already looking into doing like a woodworking night class or something, and it kind of all just kind of a quick decision by the end of it. And I was like, well, why not? I've got nothing to lose. Just go fully into it and then see if I like it. And yeah, so that was it.
And did you have any reservations, sort of coming from doing events to then moving into a trade business?
Yeah, I had quite a lot of pushback from, it was kind of more of a 50-50 response. So half the people that I would say saying, I'm quitting the events industry and going into the construction industry, they were like, oh my gosh, that's so cool, kind of thing. And then the other half was, oh, why are you doing that? Kind of thinking it's a downgrade in my career path. But the financial side of it, going into it, especially with the apprenticeship side, it was kind of a no-brainer with actually learning on the job. Yes, at the start, it was a bit of a pay cut, but that was something I was willing to do and back myself with that process. And there was times where people had certain kind of hesitations of me being a female in a male-dominated industry. But again, with the events industry, I was in the minority anyway. So being pretty much mostly a female or a couple of females in my company or in the industry at the same time, I kind of already knew what it was going to be like, because whenever I'd walk into a conference venue or a concert venue, everyone's thinking, oh, where's the audio engineer, or where is he? And then I'd turn up and it's like, oh, that's me, kind of thing. So I was already prepared with that aspect. So yeah, for me, I didn't think it was an issue. But yeah, so still going.
How has that been, that experience? So you talked to that from doing it in the sort of from an audiovisual perspective. How's that been being in building? Has that been different?
It's been different and quite similar at the same time. So the technical thinking has come in really handy lately, especially. So reading plans and knowing, like when I was in the events industry, and knowing signal flows and that kind of technical thinking has definitely come in handy with reading plans, and even the math side of it. I thought even in high school they always say, oh, you won't need Pythagoras theorem and all that kind of stuff, but it's actually coming in handy. It's a basic level of it, but knowing that has definitely come in handy. So yeah.
And has it been difficult? Have you found it difficult being a woman in the trade? You talked about that and about those sort of 50%. What would you say to those people now you're sort of in it and doing the job?
Yeah, I think it's definitely doable. Like, even I think I was even talking to one of the guys on site the other day. It's quite a lot of people think, oh, the strength is the main issue of not being able to lift timber or that kind of thing. But I'm actually finding being shorter than most people is more of an issue. But you've got ladders, and with the like lifting things, it's always got a few people on sites that you can always help out, and it's a building, like you build up your strength with anything as you go on. So I'm a lot stronger now compared to 4 years ago when I started, and it's more of a site fitness rather than like I don't know, another type of strength. But yeah, but you always have teammates around you, so nothing's ever like unmanageable or anything like that. There's always good teammates around you to help out when you need to.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've had a pretty good experience, which is good to hear.
Yeah, there's always the few odd comments that fly in from subbies on site, but nothing that's I have heard of worse experiences and really off-putting experiences from other females in the community, especially even in New Zealand and overseas in Aussie and stuff. But I think from my experience, it's been pretty good.
Yeah, and I saw from your last podcast you'd sort of been working with Trade Up Co and some of those people and connecting with other sort of women's in trades, which feels like quite a global phenomena in terms of the level of connectivity socially between those groups. Is there more you think that can be done to encourage more diversity into trades and get more people to see it as a viable career option?
Yeah, I think definitely, even at the basic level of having more like at the school level, like I don't remember getting building or trades, being a plumber or an electrician, advertised to me when I was in high school and getting ready to leave into the workforce. So I think even at that basic level of having that as an option that is promoted, because financially it is compared to uni, it is another equal option, and it's such a great career path. I think even over the last few years, the more of us females getting into it, and even just building the community we have so far in the last few years, it's definitely growing, and it's such a cool thing to be a part of as well. Just seeing that community grow, and the more people that are in it, then it's not just like the one-off female on site. It will be cool to when there's multiple females on site or more than just one, and it's kind of like of other females now on other sites that are all kind of by themselves. But when I first started, it was more like, I don't know any females in where I work, but now I know probably more than 50 now through social media and meetups and stuff like that. So it's really cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, no, it's been great to see. And what do you say to those people sort of 4 years in who had doubts about it? What have you learned from that experience in the last 4 years?
I think it's definitely pushed me with kind of what I'm capable of. So even I was already quite strong-minded before, but it's just solidified it in that, just knowing myself a lot better with what physical and mental capabilities, so building on site and just kind of even stepping into leadership roles now is it's such an empowering thing, and kind of going through and challenging myself with what do I know, and kind of constantly pushing myself is such a good feeling. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Cool. And you're working for a family builder, not your family, as you rightly corrected me, but a family builder. How's that been? Talk me through the company and how that's been for the last few years.
Yeah. So I've been with this company almost 2 years now, and we specialize in higher end residential renovations. So the current project I'm on now is quite a cool one. There's a lot of details going into the extension and the outdoor areas. So lots of in situ concrete pours, fireplaces, and some really cool designs. And the guys that are working with me, it's definitely more like a family orientated vibe and stuff. And it's just really cool. It's always, with renovations, it's always kind of blending the old with the new. So there's always surprises when you open up walls and figure out and tying in all the different details, which is really cool.
Yeah, fantastic. And do you think, I guess one of the questions I would also have, building on what you talked about around schools, which does seem to be the main issue, I mean, across the board, actually, in terms of providing that as a first choice, career choice for people. What, looking back, if you when you were younger, do you think that would have been an option you would have gone for if there was more education around that?
Yeah, I think so, because when we had career days and stuff, there was always kind of the defense forces and engineering side of things, and I was always kind of out of the box kind of thinking. Even with audio engineering, that was definitely not the typical. I was always doing something different compared to my peers, and just even like materials tech and stuff. I think they did potentially have like a tiny woodworking section of like hard tech or whatever it's called, but it wasn't enough to be kind of a full scope of things and like hands-on. So I know quite a few other schools that do full projects of like portable houses on site on their school. I did go to an all-girls school, so that probably kind of I wasn't exposed to as much as I could have been if it was a co-ed
part of the problem.
I think it was, and I think definitely in that area, it can be done more, even in female-only schools. It can be advertised more, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. And, if you were talking to, someone else like you who was maybe, 8 years about to finish school, thinking about their career, haven't thought through what they want to do, and maybe they're thinking about the trades, what would your advice be to those people?
Yeah, I think definitely, first of all, don't rush into a university degree that you're unsure about, or if it's someone else's idea, thinking, oh, you should just go do this, because it is a lot of money having a university student loan, especially if it's a 4 or 5 year degree. Some of my friends are still paying that off, so it's not necessarily a decision that you want to be taking lightly. You do, even if you wanted to have a gap year and just do some labouring, or even take a trade ready certificate. So even if it's like a 6 month or a year course, just to kind of dip your toes and just to see if it's something for you. But I think definitely figure out what trades you want as well if you are looking into the trades. So there's so many different varieties of things, so you just kind of need to test out which one suits you better. But it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, cool. And then, as a builder, building right now, what are the main challenges you're seeing here in New Zealand?
I think everyone's talking about the material shortages, especially with wood at the moment, and timber. I think it's starting to get back on track now, but only just. And I think the labour, having skilled workers is definitely an issue. Those two is kind of like, and everyone's not going overseas, so wanting to renovate or buy a new house. So I think it's kind of like a perfect storm at the moment with the construction industry. So I think if we can get more females into the industry, that's kind of bridging that gap. And with materials, it is what it is, but finding alternatives that we can use, then yeah, I think that's
it just opens up other avenues of a whole talent pool, right, which has been untapped at the moment. And just for a small translation, but we have people listening in the UK and US, jib is otherwise known as drywall or plasterboard. But yes, and it was a crazy. I hear it's improved here a bit, but there was a period of time where people were trying to buy it on the eBays of New Zealand. Which is quite bad and hard to imagine. Actually, that would have been a thing, right? If you'd gone back 2 years and said, "Hey, we're going to run out of." Like those types of things, you would never believe it.
It's kind of like the toilet paper crisis during lockdown.
That was would be a good analogy, actually. It was like that, and it's hard to do it. And as a builder, that's pretty hard to finish a job right without that stuff at the very end. So and how's the business managing that? Are you sort of having to review costing because your jobs are probably slightly more costed in advance and more long term by nature? Has that been an issue?
I think my boss is handling it pretty well, and I think they just forecast quite a bit and have kind of flexibility with timelines and multiple jobs going at one time. So then if there is a delay on one site, then it can be adjusted and we move around where necessary and fill in with smaller jobs if we're delayed. But yeah, I think he handles it pretty well. We're always busy. So yeah.
Yeah, cool. It's good to see. And then, talk me through, you've got a podcast, you're pretty prevalent on Instagram, you're connecting with other people. What was what drove you to do that, particularly the podcast? What made you decide to get out there and do that stuff as well as the job?
Yeah, so the podcast I was wanting to do for a wee while, but kind of had to build up my own confidence to put myself out there to do that. But when I did finally kind of start it, I was wanting to have something kind of out in the world that can promote what it's really like being a female in the industry, and with tiny houses as well. Because my commute is, I don't know, some days up to 2 hours to work. So an hour there, an hour home. And I myself really enjoy podcasts because I don't really read books. So that's my time to listen to a whole lot of different stuff. So I thought, and at the time when I first started in my first year, I was trying to find podcasts that I could listen to that I could actually be seeing and hearing other people that I could relate with, but there wasn't any. I was searching into Spotify and nothing was coming up. I think I've found a few more recently and now, but I could see that there wasn't anything where I was looking. So I was like, well, I'll have to do it myself then.
Fill the gap.
That's pretty much it.
And how's that been? How's that experience been for you? How have you approached it?
Yeah, it's been really well received, and anyone that I've talked to that has kind of in the lady trader community come up to me at certain events, they've actually really enjoyed it. And I'm quite surprised that I've got quite a lot of male followers as well listening to it. So that's really cool that they're wanting to listen to me and what I have to kind of share and express. And I kind of approach it so if I've gone through a month or two of something that I've kind of realized or learnt on site over the last couple of years, then I want to kind of bring that into the podcast to share what I've kind of discovered or learnt, and so I can pass that on.
I think it's a really good. I mean, look, I think it's partly why we do this is one, for people that are established to think about how they're running their business. Are there other things they should do? Here's some challenges from people that are doing it. But the other reason, I think, is to your earlier point, is for those sort of younger generation people that maybe are thinking, or even actually in some instances, people that have already had a career that are thinking about, like, should I get into the trades? And actually, there's nothing better than hearing the experiences and stories, good, bad, and ugly, and from people that are actually in there doing that. So because one of the challenges is people often say, "Yep, I want to be a builder or plumber." And then they sort of do, a day and go, no, actually, I don't. And that's, a hugely expensive waste of time for lots of small companies, right, that don't need to hire those people. So I do think it's a good way to encourage more people in. And it feels like quite a global phenomenon as well. Do you find that you're connecting more with people in Australia, UK, US, etc., that are going through similar things, particularly on Instagram?
Yeah, definitely. There's quite a lot of even American ladies in construction that I'm connecting with and talking to, and even it's quite cool to like buildings unique in New Zealand in a way, but even the measurements and how the Americans speak with their measurement style and how they build houses. It's quite cool to see what other countries are doing and how it is around the world, and different types of practices around the world and that kind of thing. So I find it quite interesting, filling that gap of knowledge and knowing what other people are doing and how they find things is really cool.
Are there many other tiny houses in the US and places like that? Is that phenomena catching on? I guess it would be. I see lots of those sort of movable, easy to build or pre-built houses are happening. Is that a pretty big phenomenon you've seen elsewhere in the world?
Yeah, so again, that's a whole definitely a growing industry for builders, as well as people wanting to live in tiny houses as a home. And yes, definitely, I think even on New Zealand TV, there's tiny house programs and a very big following on people's YouTube channels as well. So it's definitely even more so since COVID happening, that people are trying to find better ways of living, that they aren't stretching their budgets each week, and actually having a secure house to live in that they know that they can afford to live in it without the extra stress and hassle of having a massive mortgage or that kind of thing. It's just another way of living, but I think it's
total sense.
Growing.
Yeah, cool. And how is the tiny house coming along? Is it finished?
No, not yet.
No.
It's halfway through, so we've completed the whole shell. We've got electrical in, and we've kind of bits and pieces started on the inside. It's quite hard balancing study,
that was my next question.
Work, or like even just having a life as well and seeing my friends and family. It's a bit of a balancing act, but it's in the few hours on the weekend that I've spared, then it's ticking along nicely.
Yeah, people I know who are builders get fed up, I think, with family and friends saying, "Oh, can you come and quote or do this thing for me?" And they're like, "Yeah, I've got a day job." So I can imagine that is a stretch. When do you think you'll finish it?
Hopefully, I'd say in the next 6 months, maybe push it to a year. I always say, "Oh, I'll be done by Christmas," but that's always every builder's kind of timeline. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes, but hopefully at the max in the next year.
And have you got better at doing it? Have you found through the apprenticeship and doing the work that you're doing, elements of building that tiny house have got easier?
Yeah, definitely. I think knowing what to worry about, what not to worry about, and where to look for the information. So I designed the tiny house myself and got it drawn up. So it's not, I don't have architectural plans to kind of work off. So every detail I have to kind of work out as I go along. So now that I'm starting the inside, we kind of have a better, it's an easy run kind of thing, because it's stock standard, but the outside and getting the actual structure together was quite hard and such a learning process for me. And starting a building apprenticeship kind of almost at the same time within it, pretty much I started 2 years into my apprenticeship, so I was still very green with my knowledge and my skills as well. So it's probably starting it, and the workmanship has gotten better as well.
Yeah, cool.
So,
it's good to hear. Great. Well, look, we always finish. This has been great, and it's really great to hear your experience. I think, especially as it sounds like you're working for a decent firm with some great experience and haven't been through that. And also to transition. There's a few. I met someone. I think I spoke about this in the last podcast. Who was a dentist, I think, who moved across to get into the trades. It's really good to see that, because I think one of the ways to grow that kind of talent shortage actually is to get the people that are probably fed up doing something else, that want to change and maybe have had an itch to be, in the trades for a long time, just haven't really gone forward and done that. So it's good to see. And then, we always finish on a few questions. First one, I'm going to ask you, if you weren't a builder, which trade would you have picked, or would you have picked another trade?
I think maybe a plumber. I think that would be quite cool. I know everyone's initial thought is it's not such a lovely job, but there's actually quite a lot of interesting aspects to the job. So I think a plumber, and I think they get paid pretty well. So yeah.
Well, yeah, apparently I had someone from Australia on last week, and he was saying that the misnomer is that electricians earn the most, and apparently it's not true. So I don't know. We'll let that debate thrive out on social media. And then, if you had a favorite type of building job, apart from building tiny houses, because I think that might be your first answer, what would it be?
Oh, I think currently it's I'm doing quite a lot of concrete work, so really like fireplaces and really interesting in situ pours. So it's definitely a challenging aspect, but I think it's pushing me in the right way at the moment. So I think that would be quite cool to do a bit more of that.
Cool. And last question, or last two questions. One is, do you have a sort of favorite lunch you would have? You go to lunch when you're on a job?
Currently, seeing it's been quite cold and still in winter, I've been having like different soup mix or soup pretty much with pita pockets and toasted sandwiches and stuff like that. So anything that's kind of warm.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's what I normally have.
Cool. And then, we talk to lots of different people. Anyone you've come across you think it's worth having a conversation with that's interesting in the trades that you speak to?
I think maybe there's quite a lot of lady tradies out there, but the first one that comes to mind is Bex the builder. So she's another really awesome female in the trades doing some really cool stuff. So yeah.
Cool, great. Well, so thanks so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Really exciting to hear your journey. Also excited to hear how that tiny house goes. You have to share some pictures with us when it's finished, and so people know we'll have to post it up there or something to show people what it looks like. But yeah, great journey. Great to see that you're thriving in the trades. It's really good to see. And appreciate you spending the time, because I know obviously you're building a house, renovating someone else's house, and studying. So we appreciate you squeezing us in. So thanks, and we'll speak to you soon, and thanks for everyone else. And again, if you are interested in being a guest or have any suggestions for us, please hit us up on the usual places. Otherwise, we'll speak to you next time. Cheers. See you. Thanks, Sophie. Bye.
Bye.
And that brings us to the end of this episode. Behind the Tools is brought to you by Tradify, job management software for your trade business. If you enjoyed the podcast, let us know by leaving a review, and be sure to tell your mates about it. Email behindthetools@tradifyhq.com if you or someone you know would be keen to join the show as a guest.